Something opened a few days ago, and most people haven't noticed yet. You didn't miss an announcement. There wasn't one. But somewhere between last week's full moon and this morning's coffee, the sky rearranged itself in a way astrologers have tracked for thousands of years. And the timing lines up with something you've probably been feeling without having a name for it. A pull to slow down, right at the exact moment everything around you seems to be speeding up. Colleagues moving faster, group chats louder, a strange pressure to have an opinion, a plan, a launch, a next step, right now, this week, before you're actually ready. This isn't a video telling you to manifest harder or activate your codes by a specific hour on the 8th. It's the opposite. Between now and the peak of this window, the sky is handing you one of the rarest permission slips it hands out all year. Permission to be still, on purpose, while everyone else is running. And if you actually take it, the next few months look different. Not because the universe rearranged your life for you while you napped, because you finally had the room to see your own life clearly, maybe for the first time in a while, without 3 notifications interrupting the thought before it finished forming. So let's talk about what's actually happening up there this week, why the timing is unusually layered this particular year, and why stillness, real stillness, not collapsing from exhaustion and calling it rest, might be the most productive thing you do this month. No countdown clock, no fear, just the sky and what it's actually doing and what you might do with that. You don't need a chart, a specific practice, or any prior interest in astrology for any of this to be useful to you. You just need to be willing, for the length of this video and maybe a little longer, to consider that the loudest response to a big week isn't always the smartest one, and that sometimes the most honest thing you can do with a wide open window is walk through it slowly enough to actually see where you're going. Here's the part almost nobody explains properly. The Lion's Gate isn't a single date you either catch or miss. It's a window. It opens in late July when the sun settles fully into Leo and the star Sirius begins its slow climb back into visibility just before dawn, and it runs into the middle of August. The date everyone talks about, August 8th, is the peak, not the whole event. Which means right now, today, you are already standing inside a structure that's open on every side. The question this week is asking isn't, will something happen to me? It's what am I willing to notice while I'm standing here? Picture walking into a room with unusually good natural light, the kind that pours in sideways in the late afternoon and lands on every surface at once. The room doesn't do anything. It doesn't rearrange your furniture for you. It just lets you finally see the furniture that was always there, the stuff you've been stepping around in the dark for months without quite registering it. That's the actual mechanism behind why so many people report sudden clarity, unexpected insight, or uncharacteristic decisiveness during this stretch. It isn't magic reaching down and doing the work for you. It's illumination removing your excuse not to look. And this particular year, the room has an unusual amount of light in it. Jupiter, the planet astrology has long associated with expansion, confidence, and being seen, moved into Leo back in June for the first time in more than a decade. Right now, it's sitting in the early to middle degrees of the sign, close enough to the sun that the two are effectively reinforcing each other rather than competing. So you've got the sun doing what it does every single summer, moving through Leo on schedule, except this time Jupiter is standing directly beside it, amplifying the exact same themes: visibility, self-expression, the courage to take up space you've been quietly shrinking away from for longer than you'd like to admit. Two large, bright, structural forces pointing at the same part of the sky. During the same 8 to 12-day window, the ancients built entire calendars around. That specific combination doesn't come around often. It's genuinely worth being still for, rather than just posting about. There's a smaller detail worth naming precisely because it sharpens the whole picture. Jupiter is currently sitting near the 8th degree of Leo, a degree astrologers have long connected to creative mastery. The difference between having a talent and actually finishing the thing that talent is capable of making. Not raw inspiration, which Leo hands out constantly and cheaply. Completion. The unglamorous last 20% of a project that most people abandon right before it would have mattered. If there's something you started with real excitement months ago and quietly let stall once the initial spark faded, this is an unusually good stretch to go back and finish it, rather than starting something shinier and new. Here's what that might actually look like in a normal week, not a mystical one. You finally admit, sitting quietly with your coffee instead of your phone, that you've been avoiding a conversation for 3 months because you already know how it ends, or you notice, without anyone pointing it out, that the job you keep defending to other people is the same job you complain about every single Sunday night. The light doesn't make that observation dramatic. It just makes it visible. What you do with it afterward is entirely up to you. You may have felt this before you ever typed a search into your phone. A restlessness that isn't quite anxious, more like standing at the edge of something and not having a word for it yet. Or maybe the opposite showed up for you. A heaviness, a pull toward your own couch, your own silence, arriving at the exact moment your calendar insists you should be on. Neither of those is a malfunction. Both are entirely reasonable responses to a sky that's currently asking you to look inward before you build outward, whether your to-do list agrees or not. There's a reason a version of this portal has survived in some form across thousands of years of human sky watching. Egyptian astronomer priests charted Sirius's return to the pre-dawn horizon as one of the single most important events on their calendar, tied directly to the coming flood of the Nile and the renewal of the entire agricultural season that fed their civilization. They called that flood season Akhet, and it wasn't treated as a disaster to survive. It was treated as the necessary pause before growth. The water had to rise and settle before a single seed went into the ground. They personified Sirius itself as Sopdet, a goddess whose return to the sky was the actual signal that the whole cycle was about to turn over. Nobody rushed her. Nobody demanded she arrive early because the harvest schedule was inconvenient. The entire civilization organized itself around waiting for a single point of light to reappear on the horizon because they understood something a lot of us have quietly forgotten. You can't force the timing of a real renewal. You can only prepare yourself well enough to recognize it when it actually arrives. They didn't mark Sirius's return by getting louder or throwing a bigger festival than the year before. They watched. They tracked the horizon night after night, patiently, for weeks. They waited for the water to actually arrive before they planted anything. You don't need to believe in ancient Egyptian cosmology to notice that same pattern quietly repeating in your own life, right now, this week. Think about the biggest, most accurate decisions you've ever made, the ones that actually held up 6 months later instead of quietly falling apart, the way rushed decisions tend to. Chances are good they weren't made during your busiest, loudest week. They were made in a quiet one, on a long drive with the radio off, in the shower 10 minutes before you had to leave, at 6 in the morning, before anyone else in the house was awake and asking you for anything. This window is handing you an unusually long stretch of that same quiet morning energy structurally, whether or not your actual schedule cooperates with the idea. The invitation is simply to protect a little of it on purpose instead of letting it get swallowed by everything loud competing for your attention this particular week. It's a strange thing to admit out loud, but most of us already know this about ourselves and organize our lives around ignoring it anyway. We schedule the important conversation for the middle of a packed day instead of the quiet morning we know we think more clearly in. We make the big decision at midnight, exhausted, because that's simply when we finally sat still, long enough to face it, rather than choosing the stillness on purpose, ahead of time, when we actually had the clarity to use it well. This window isn't handing you new information about yourself. It's handing you an unusually good excuse to finally act on information you've had for years. Here's the detail. Most videos on this topic skip entirely, and it might be the single most useful piece of the whole week. On July 26th, the lunar nodes shifted. The North Node, the point astrology treats as your growth edge, the direction you're being invited to stretch toward, even when it's uncomfortable, moved into Aquarius. The South Node, the familiar, well-worn, comfortable groove you already know how to walk with your eyes closed, moved into Leo. This isn't a small technical detail. It's the backdrop for the next 18 months. And it happens to be landing at the exact same moment the Lion's Gate is peaking. Sit with that for a second, because it's a genuinely useful coincidence of timing, not a contradiction. The exact same days, the sky is spotlighting Leo, confidence, self-expression. I exist, and I'm allowed to take up space. The growth instructions underneath it are quietly saying something more specific. Don't just perform the confidence for an audience. Use it for something bigger than your own reflection. Aquarius is the sign of community, of systems, of the collective future you're building alongside other people, not just the highlight reel you're building for people to watch scroll past. Leo, without Aquarius, can turn into a spotlight with no real reason for the room to keep watching once the initial shine wears off. Aquarius without Leo can turn into a cause with nobody solid enough behind it to actually lead it anywhere. This week is quietly asking you to hold both at once. Be visible. The Sun and Jupiter both insist on it, loudly, and there's no getting around that this week. But be visible for something, not simply visible because visibility itself feels good in the moment. Picture two versions of the same creative project, one made purely so people notice you made it, and one made because it might actually be useful to somebody besides you. Same effort, same visibility, completely different route. That's the actual growth edge underneath all the manifestation language you'll see everywhere else this week. It's less flashy than a hashtag. It's also the part that actually lasts past September, long after this particular portal has closed. You'll probably get at least one small, ordinary chance to practice this before the week is out. A moment where you could either make something about how it makes you look, or make it about whether it actually helps. A post you could frame around your own image, or frame around something useful to the people reading it. A piece of credit you could quietly claim for yourself, or share honestly with the people who actually did the work alongside you. Nobody's grading this. There's no wrong answer that ends the world, but paying attention to which choice you make this particular week tells you more about where you actually are on that North Node journey than any amount of reading about it ever will. 18 months from now, when this particular nodal axis finishes its cycle, the difference won't be one dramatic decision you made in August. It'll be the sum of 100 small ones exactly like this, each one nudging you a little further toward genuinely shared purpose instead of a solo performance nobody actually needed. If your energy has been dipping instead of spiking this week, here's why, and here's why it isn't a problem that needs fixing. The moon is waning through this entire stretch, moving from the full moon in Aquarius on July 29th toward a fresh cycle, sliding through the sky and landing in Gemini right around the portal's peak. A waning moon isn't a low-energy, something's wrong moon. It's a releasing moon. It's built for editing, sorting, and letting go, not for launching something brand new into the world. This matters because most people treat every astrologically big week the same way, as a week to push harder, post more, decide faster, launch the thing they've been sitting on. That instinct is exactly backwards for this particular stretch, and it's worth naming plainly. The Sun and Jupiter are handing you the insight and the confidence this week. The moon is handing you the quiet room to actually sit with that insight before you act on it. Insight without integration has a habit of curdling into impulse. You've lived through what that looks like before. The fast decision made in a rush of inspired feeling energy. The one that didn't actually hold up 2 weeks later once the excitement wore off. This window is different because it's explicitly offering you both halves at once, the spark and the deliberate quiet that lets you test whether the spark is actually yours or just adrenaline wearing an inspired-looking costume. There's a smaller, more concrete transit sitting right in the middle of this window, worth naming too. On August 6th, Venus shifts into Libra, her own sign, the one she's most at home in. Whatever's been feeling slightly off balance in a relationship, a partnership, or a negotiation gets a genuine assist here, but only if you're paying attention instead of steamrolling past it toward whatever's next on your list. Libra energy doesn't shout for balance. It notices when something's tipped and quietly rebalances the scale, one small, honest adjustment at a time. A returned phone call, an apology that's been overdue, a fair split of something that's been quietly unfair for a while. Combined with the waning moon, this is a week built for repair and recalibration in your closest connections, not for forcing a big relationship conversation before you've actually sat with what you genuinely want to say. Think of the whole stretch as a rough cut sitting on an editor's desk. You already shot the footage. That's the first half of the summer. This week isn't for shooting new scenes. It's for sitting with what you've already got, cutting what doesn't serve the story anymore, and noticing which scenes you kept only out of habit. Editing isn't a lesser task than filming. It's usually the part that actually makes the story make sense. Nobody remembers a film for how much unused footage the director shot. They remember it for what got cut, what got kept, and what those choices added up to. This week rewards the same discipline in your own life, not more input, more footage, more options. A clearer sense of what actually belongs in the final version of whatever you're building. None of this is abstract. Here's what it looks like in practice, in an ordinary week with an ordinary amount of laundry and email still sitting there waiting for you. It doesn't require a retreat, a special app, or clearing your calendar for 3 days. Start with 1 protected hour. Not a whole day, just 1 hour, ideally in the morning before the noise starts, where your phone is somewhere else entirely. Not on silent next to you, somewhere else. Use it, however you actually think clearly. Walking, journaling, sitting with tea, staring at a wall. The point isn't the activity, it's the absence of input long enough for your own thoughts to finish a sentence. Next, if a decision has been circling for weeks, write it down without acting on it yet. Just the decision plainly, in your own handwriting or your notes app. What you're actually choosing between and what you already suspect the answer is, if you're honest. You don't have to send the email or make the call this week. You just have to stop pretending you don't already know, at least on paper, where you actually stand. Pay attention to the difference between visibility that feels true coming out of your own mouth and visibility that feels like a performance you're maintaining for an audience. This week will hand you more than one chance to notice the difference, given how loudly the Sun and Jupiter are lighting up anything Leo touches. You don't need to fix the performative parts overnight. Just notice them. Noticing is most of the work. And let Venus's shift into Libra do quiet relationship repair rather than forcing anything. A small gesture, genuinely showing up, genuinely listening without already drafting your response, tends to land better this week than a big dramatic conversation staged for effect. Save the bigger conversation for when the insight has had time to settle, rather than delivering it straight off the spark. Try going back to one unfinished thing, rather than starting a new one. The draft, the application, the room you started reorganizing and abandoned halfway. Jupiter near this degree of Leo genuinely favors completion over fresh starts this week, and there's a particular kind of relief in finishing something small that's been quietly unfinished in the back of your mind for weeks, and build in one moment of actual rest that isn't collapse. The difference matters more than it sounds. Collapse is what happens at the end of a day you push through on fumes, when your body finally shuts the laptop for you because you didn't do it yourself. Rest, the kind this window is actually asking for, is chosen ahead of time, on purpose, before you're running on empty. Even 20 minutes, taken deliberately instead of collapsed into, does something different for you than the same 20 minutes taken as a last resort. Finally, resist the pull to immediately start researching what's coming next. The eclipse, the next transit, the next big date on someone else's calendar. There will always be another big date. Stay here first, finish this window before you start living in the next one. Every architect will tell you the same unglamorous truth. You don't pour a foundation before you've actually read the plans, no matter how excited you are to start building, no matter how good the weather looks this week. Excitement is not a substitute for a blueprint, and it never has been. This week, astrologically, is blueprint season, not construction season, even though it feels, thanks to the Sun and Jupiter both blazing through Leo, like it should be exactly the opposite. There's an original piece worth sitting with here. The thing this window is actually teaching you, if you let it. Stillness isn't the opposite of momentum. It's the vantage point that tells you which momentum is genuinely yours to claim. Two people can look equally still from the outside this week, one of them frozen, avoiding a decision they already privately know the answer to, and the other one deliberately, calmly reading the blueprint before the first brick goes down. From the outside, those two postures look nearly identical. From the inside, they're complete opposites. The real value of this window is learning to tell the difference in yourself in real time without needing anyone else to confirm which one you're actually doing. Ask yourself honestly, sometime this week, ideally somewhere quiet, Is the stillness I'm feeling right now protecting a decision I haven't fully made yet? Or is it avoiding one I already have? On August 7th, the Sun forms a supportive trine to Saturn, currently retrograde in Aries, a firm, grounding, get-serious kind of aspect that rewards exactly this sort of honest self-audit. Saturn retrograde doesn't hand out shortcuts. It asks you to look at the actual structure underneath your plans and be honest about what's load-bearing and what's just decoration you've grown attached to. A plan can look impressive and still be missing a foundation. Saturn's the planet that quietly checks for that. No drama, just a clipboard and an honest inspection. In practice, load-bearing usually looks like the unglamorous parts of a plan you'd rather skip past. The budget, the timeline, the actual conversation with the person whose buy-in you need, the skill you haven't quite built yet. Decoration usually looks like the exciting parts you've already rehearsed in your head a dozen times. The announcement, the launch graphic, the way it'll feel once it's finally real. Both matter. But only one of them holds the weight if something pushes against the plan later. And this week is unusually good at showing you, quietly and without judgment, which one you've actually been spending your energy on. The Sun and Jupiter in Leo will not let you sit comfortably in avoidance for very long, regardless. That combination has never been subtle about wanting to be seen, wanting to move, wanting to matter out loud. But paired with Saturn's trine, this week specifically rewards the extra few days spent reading the plans first, before the concrete gets poured and becomes considerably harder to undo. It's worth being precise about why this particular Lion's Gate is structurally different from the ones you've lived through before. Because the honest answer isn't, the energy is stronger this year. That phrase gets used so often, it's stopped meaning anything. The honest answer is that several genuinely separate cycles happen to be closing and opening at the same time, and that kind of overlap is rare enough to name specifically. Jupiter moves through the entire zodiac roughly once every 12 years, spending about a year in each sign. The last time it moved through Leo was over a decade ago, meaning whatever you were building, becoming, or stepping into visibility with back then is directly relevant context for whatever wants to happen with your visibility now, not a repeat, a continuation, picking up roughly where that earlier chapter left off, with 12 years of actual living stacked in between the two. The lunar nodes, meanwhile, run on an 18.5-year cycle and only just shifted into this exact Aquarius-Leo axis on July 26th, which means you are, right now, standing at the very beginning of that particular growth axis rather than somewhere in its middle. First weeks of a new 18-month chapter read differently than week 40 of it. And then there's the date itself. August 8th, 2026 reduces, digit by digit, to an unusually concentrated 8, a number numerology has associated with structure, authority, and material consequence for about as long as numerology has existed as a practice, layered directly on top of a Sun-Jupiter conjunction that's already speaking a very similar language. None of these three things cause the others. That's precisely what makes the overlap worth noting, instead of dismissing as coincidence dressed up in mystical language. A 12-year planetary cycle, an 18-year nodal cycle, and a calendar date's own numerology don't usually land on the same week by design. They simply happen to, this particular year, and whether or not that convergence means anything cosmic is far less important than the plain fact that you get to decide what to do with a week where several separate clocks all happen to be resetting at once. That's a genuinely useful coincidence to be still for, whatever you make of the deeper why. Nothing about this window guarantees a specific outcome, and anyone promising you a particular result by a particular date is selling you a certainty the sky simply doesn't offer. What tends to happen instead, reported again and again by people who treat this stretch as a genuine pause rather than a performance of one, is smaller and considerably more durable than a miracle. A decision that had been quietly circling for months finally lands cleanly, without drama, because you gave it the actual quiet it needed to resolve on its own terms. A direction that felt like 10 equally loud, equally plausible options quietly narrows down to the one that was actually yours all along, once the surrounding noise dropped low enough for you to hear your own preference underneath it. Relationships where you'd been performing more than genuinely showing up start to feel lighter almost immediately, simply because you stopped performing for a week and let the people around you see what was actually there the whole time. Sometimes that's a partner. Sometimes it's a friendship that had quietly turned into an obligation you kept renewing out of guilt rather than genuine warmth. And naming that honestly, even just to yourself, changes how the next conversation with that person actually goes. A creative or professional project that had stalled for reasons you couldn't quite name often reveals, in the quiet, that it stalled because it was never actually finished being designed. And once you see that clearly, the stall stops feeling like failure and starts feeling like useful information. Money decisions that had felt tangled, not because the numbers were actually complicated, but because you'd been avoiding looking directly at them, tend to simplify once you finally open the account and read what's actually there instead of the version of it you'd been carrying around in your head. None of that requires a specific ritual, a particular candle color, or being awake at a precise minute on the 8th itself. It requires exactly one thing, repeated a few times this week, protecting some real, unscheduled quiet, and using it to look honestly at what you already know deep down, instead of adding one more loud decision to an already crowded pile. And it's worth naming plainly what's coming directly after this window closes so you're not caught off guard by it. Mercury joins the Sun and Jupiter in Leo on the 9th, and a total solar eclipse lands in Leo on the 12th, with Mercury and Jupiter both still sitting in the same sign as the eclipsed Sun and Moon. Eclipses tend to accelerate whatever's already in motion. They don't usually create direction out of nothing, which means the clearer you get during this quieter window, the more that eclipse has something genuinely yours to accelerate, instead of just amplifying whatever noise happened to be loudest in the room. Think of this week as the quiet rehearsal before opening night, not opening night itself, the version where you're allowed to stumble over a line in an empty theater with nobody watching, so that by the time the lights actually come up, what you're offering has already been tested against your own honest judgment first. The sky opened a window. It didn't hand you a script to follow, and it certainly didn't make any of your decisions for you while you weren't looking. What you build in the structural clarity this particular week offers, that part is entirely yours to shape, on your own timeline, in your own way, at your own pace. You don't need to rush the Aquarius homework before you're ready for it, and you don't need to force the Leo visibility before it actually feels true coming out of your own mouth. You get to choose what you build, once you can finally see the room you've been standing in this whole time. That's not a small thing to walk away with from a single week. Most weeks don't hand you that kind of vantage point at all, let alone hand it to you gently, without demanding a crisis in exchange for the clarity. So if the version of this week you actually need is loud, take the loud version. Leo won't stop you, and neither will Jupiter. But if some part of you has been waiting for permission to just stop for a minute, actually stop without falling behind or missing out on anything that mattered, consider this that permission, in writing, from the sky itself. You were never behind. You were just standing in a room with the lights off, and someone finally opened the blinds. If this gave you something worth sitting with, subscribe. This channel covers the real astrology behind what's actually happening in the sky, without the fear-based countdown clocks and without the pressure to perform a crisis that isn't really there. And weeks like this one are exactly the kind worth having company for. Drop where you're feeling this most right now, in one word if that's easier. I read every comment, and it genuinely shapes what we cover next.